So Pete Buttigieg went on the Pod Save America podcast, and he was asked a bunch of questions here about Israel and Gaza. Now, I must say, shout out to the Pod Save guys, because they've certainly been covering this issue pretty aggressively. And, you know, I think it's really indicative of liberals across this country waking up and basically moving further to the left and realizing that leftists are correct and, you know, sort of just becoming more leftist day by day. But what you're about to see here is Pete Buttigieg is not really in the same place as the Pod Save guys. And in fact, the answer that he gives here got absolutely obliterated online, just decimated by people who were furious over just how much he swings and misses here when asked about what's going on in Gaza. So let's watch and we'll break it down as we go here.
More than half of Senate Democrats just voted to oppose the sale of over $500 million worth of U.S. bombs and guns to Israel. Would you have voted to oppose sending those weapons?
Let me just pause to point out here, literally the only acceptable answer is yes. You can just say yes. That's it. If you just said yes, okay. Yes, cut off the weapons, of course. That's it. All you have to say is yes. But if you want to say yes, and here's why, that's fine too. Let's see what he goes with.
To oppose sending those weapons?
I think we need to insist that if American taxpayer funding is going to weaponry that is going to Israel, that is not going to things that shock the conscience. And look, we see images every day that shock the conscience. So much of this is complicated.
Really? Is that the line we're going with 2 years into the genocide? Really? So much of this is complicated. I would argue the exact opposite. So much of this is very simple. So much of this is very straightforward. Here, I'll give you an example. Starving innocent people to death is bad. Is that complicated? Is that hard? Is that difficult? I actually think that's pretty straightforward. I actually think that's the clearest thing anybody's ever said in human history. Starving innocent people, including the elderly and children, that is bad. We've had over, 200 people die from starvation already? That's what we've had, and it's probably going up by the day. And that's to say nothing of the 100 or fewer that get murdered when they go to the GHF for food on a daily basis. They shoot live rounds, in theory, over their head to try to do crowd control, which is already illegal under international law. But would you look at that? They end up murdering a whole bunch of people anyway, right? So it's not complicated. It's actually very simple. Starving babies is wrong. Killing innocent people is wrong. And that's what we're witnessing here. And anybody who tries to tell you that's not the case, they're just fucking liars. They're just liars. Like, they're just lying. The amount of evidence we've all seen with our own eyes on a daily basis is just so over the top that to deny it is just modern day Holocaust denial, basically, is what you're doing. So no, Pete, it's not complicated. It's not complicated. But he's going to go on and say, oh, but that part is not complicated. But then he's not agreeing to, hey, cut off the weapons. He didn't say yes to that.
So much of this is complicated. But what's not complicated is that if a child is starving because of a choice made by a government, that is unconscionable. And
so cut off the weapons, right?
I think especially including voices who care about Israel, who believe in Israel's right to exist, who have stood with Israel in response to the unbelievable cruelty and terrorism of October 7th. I think there's a reason why so many of those voices are speaking up now too, because this is not just something that is on its face and in itself a moral catastrophe. It is also a catastrophe for Israel for the long run.
At no point in there did he say, yes, we should cut off the weapons. At no point did he say he would have voted yes on that. And also, notice the reframing of it's always putting Israel at the center. Israel. Oh, this isn't good for Israel. What would have to be done? If Israel nuked Gaza, would the turn of phrase still be, this is not great for Israel in the long run? Or is it ever okay to say, you know what? This isn't good for Palestinians. Palestinians are getting mass murdered on a daily basis. Maybe don't center the country doing the genocide. It's like watching Nazis shove Jews into gas chambers and go, this isn't great for Germany. Okay, but also, I think the Jews are the ones we should care the most about in this moment. They're the ones getting shoved into the gas chambers. Why are you framing this from gotta think about it from the perspective of Germany? Why? And it's because they're our ally, and there's so much Israel lobby money in our government that gets donated to these people. And so everything in their mind, it comes back to support Israel, our bond is unbreakable, Israel has a right to defend itself. It's the same you pull the string on the doll and it says the same 4 or 5 things. And that's where it comes from.
a moral catastrophe, it is also a catastrophe for Israel for the long run.
How do you think the next administration should handle our relationship with Israel? Do you think it should change based on what Netanyahu has done the last several years?
Well, certainly Netanyahu can't be the only voice or the only compass for what should happen in the U.S.-Israel relationship. And no matter how strongly, or especially because of how strongly you might believe in Israel's right to exist and defend itself, you don't have to make excuses for the choices that Netanyahu is making, especially because they are often made not only in the name of the Israeli people, but in the name of a U.S. alliance. I think that we, as Israel's strongest ally and friend, you put your arm around your friend when there's something like this going on and talk about what we're prepared to do together.
Is this really how we should be talking about a nation doing a genocide right in front of our eyes? Starving 1.8 million people right in front of our eyes? They killed, even if you believe the Gaza Health Ministry numbers, which are not accurate, but let's just say 60,000. The real number's over 100,000, probably over 180,000. But even if you say 60,000 people, 90% of which are innocent, minimum 70% of Gaza has been totally destroyed and reduced to rubble. Really, it's over 90% of Gaza has been totally destroyed and reduced to rubble. Is this how you should talk about the nation that did that? Oh, they're our friend. We put our arm around them, and we got to say, oh, this isn't right. Also, as Adam Johnson points out, notice they're talking about Netanyahu here. Adam Johnson calls this the one bad man theory of politics. This idea, and this is what there was actually an article written about this the other day, that you have a lot of Democrats who, they say, we've turned on Netanyahu, and we're doing that aggressively, but the reason that we're doing that is to try to pin it all on Netanyahu and exonerate Israel more broadly. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is bullshit. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a bait and switch. Because the fact of the matter is, we've seen the poll numbers. And unfortunately, the Israeli population agrees with a lot of what Netanyahu is doing here. What were the numbers? I forget. It was like 47% supported genocide in outright terms, like explicit terms. And you had 82% that supported, I think it was ethnic cleansing. And you had that poll early on, like a few months into the genocide, where it was only like 4% of the population of Israel said the IDF had gone too far. You get poll after poll after poll that shows the population is with Netanyahu and what he's doing. And what Pete Buttigieg is trying to do here is to split the difference and say, oh yes, we're all anti-Netanyahu because he's bad and you can pin all of this on him. But we love Israel more broadly, and as soon as we get rid of Netanyahu, then everything's fine and we can go back to normal. Fuck that. Fuck that. Also, you're fucking crazy if you think that anybody who would replace Netanyahu as the leader of Israel, that they would be so substantively different. That is not true. In fact, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, they're technically to Netanyahu's right, and they would go even further, right? And even the so-called left-wingers, there is no actual left in Israel, certainly not in the government itself, they wouldn't be that much different than Netanyahu either. So, I mean, it's just, this is cope. This is cope. That's all this is cope. And like I said, this is a deliberate plan on the part of a lot of Democrats who don't want to break with Israel more broadly, but they've turned on Netanyahu to try to preserve Israel more broadly, where they put all the bad stuff on Netanyahu and they say, outside of that, Israel's great, Israel's fine. That is not true. And that's exactly what Pete here is doing. It's the one bad man theory of politics.
It certainly cannot be what we see right now from this administration and this president talking about beachfront property in Gaza before he's prepared to talk about human suffering in Gaza.
Do you think it's time to recognize a Palestinian state?
I think that's...
Okay, let's be clear. The only proper answer here is yes. Now, it's cold comfort, right? Because really it's like, hey, sorry you're being genocided and ethnically cleansed, and our consolation prizes will officially recognize a Palestinian state for the 7 of you who survived. That's really what it is. But again, the only correct answer is yes.
Do you think it's time to recognize a Palestinian state?
I think that's a profound question that arouses a lot of the biggest problems that have happened with Israel's survival, or Israel's right to survival in the diplomatic scene, and many of the people who have taken that step historically.
He's moving his mouth and he's saying things, but he's not actually saying anything. He is the master of saying a lot of things without actually saying anything. This is like classic politician doublespeak, like I'm just going to talk in circles and hope that it sounds flowery enough to you to let it go and not ask a follow-up question.
Have done so for different reasons than what we see happening with European countries. I think we need to step back and we need to do whatever it takes to ensure that there is a real two-state solution and that no one, not even the likes of Netanyahu, can veto the international community's commitment to a two-state solution where you have Palestinians and Israelis living with safety, with security, with rights. I believe that can happen, but we have to actually show some commitment to it.
I can't. The pablum drives me crazy, man. It really does. So he didn't answer the question about a Palestinian state. He wouldn't vote. It sounded like he wouldn't vote in support of the thing to establish it right now. He wouldn't agree to cut off even just the offensive weapons to Israel. Like, it's just amazing to me. I don't know what else would have to happen to get people to grow a spine and grow a conscience and actually give a shit about human beings who are being massacred right in front of our eyes. I literally don't understand what would have to happen. If you are a Democratic politician and you at all want to be taken seriously by the base, remember, only 8% of the Democratic base still supports Israel. 8%. 8. Okay. Here's what you have to say. We need to cut off all the U.S. money to Israel immediately. Cut off all the weapons we send to them immediately. Condemn them at the UN. Sanction the government officials and the military officials. Bring them up on war crimes charges. Arrest Netanyahu, arrest Ben-Gvir, arrest Smotrich. Force a peace deal on them and broker a deal for Palestinian liberation and sovereignty. We don't even need any input from Israel because they're a rogue state, they're a criminal state, they're a terrorist state, and we're not interested in their opinion anymore. And outside of that, if this stuff isn't enough, you know what you do? Exactly what the Irish president said. Which is multilaterally, so you go through the UN and you militarily force Israel. We're going to allow in all the aid trucks are getting in, all the medicines getting in. And oh yeah, if you fire another fucking shot, then it's on and we fire back at you. So you have the UN multilaterally, the world over gets together and we send troops into Israel and we say, we're taking control now, you can step aside. Because if there was ever an argument for military intervention, it's a fucking live stream genocide that we've been witnessing for 2 years straight. And I'm never in favor of unilateral action. I only want unilateral action in cases of self-defense, national defense. But if it's not imminent self-defense, then I think multilaterally you go through the UN so that we're not a nation above nations, we're a nation among nations. And so we all go together to stop the genocide. And that's what you got to do. And so for Democrats to say anything outside of that, it just comes across as such chicken shit at this late date. When we've seen hospitals bombed, we've seen schools bombed, we've seen World Central Kitchen workers murdered, even when their cars were clearly, delineated as that. They were still killed from above. We've seen UN buildings bombed. We've seen that horror story. Doctors who come back from Gaza have the most stomach-churning stories you ever heard, where on a daily basis you have these children come in and they all have the same injury. One day everybody would have an ear injury, another day everybody have an arm injury, another day everybody would be shot in the testicles. And this was a thing that the IDF soldiers would do. They would play this sadistic game where they would purposely take turns shooting specific body parts on specific days of children. That's what they did. And so with all that going on, I'm sorry, your political doublespeak and talking in circles and saying a lot of things without saying a single goddamn thing. I'm done with it. I'm just done with it. We need moral clarity. And the moral clarity is what I just laid out. The moral clarity is not, talking in circles and trying to say things that sound vaguely positive about Palestine while at the same time reiterating a suckfest with Israel. No, it's time to redefine the nature of our relationship with Israel. And there is no world in which there'll be slight tweaks to us and the modern day Nazi state and our alliance. No, it should be done. It should be over. And there should be new Nuremberg trials and they should be locked up in mass numbers. Like, if anything short of that is the complete and utter destruction of international law and human rights and the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice and the Geneva Conventions, like anything short of that is unacceptable. And so his same old bullshit is not going to fly. He needs to wake up and adjust immediately or just fall off. But this is his first massive swing and a miss. He went on Andrew Schultz's podcast recently and did an okay job talking about, other stuff, economic type stuff. But now opening his mouth on Gaza, I'm telling you, it's a lesson to any Democrat who wants to be the 2028 nominee. The base is completely radicalized on this. The base is wide awake on this, and they're looking around and they're going, how can we arm and fund a genocide and be totally fine with that? And either if you're not clearly against it, you're going to be lumped in as for it. And that's where we're at. All right, guys. That's the show. I love you all very much. You guys know the drill. Everybody please click like, click subscribe, click that bell icon so you get a notification every time a video drops. Thank you to everybody who supports the show on Patreon. We couldn't do it without you. That link is below. You can also support Crystal, Kyle, and friends on Substack. That link is below as well. And go subscribe to the Corin's World YouTube channel where we drop live Kyle and Corin episodes. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.